Welcome to another episode of the BMX Show. It's great to have the guys around again. Welcome, Lorenzo,
Thank
Thank
you, bro.
you.
Welcome.
Brian, and
Good to be
Maurice.
here.
Thanks, man. Welcome to you too, X-Men.
Well, thanks. We just had a good challenge now, right? And I just want us to speak about our experiences around the challenge. And the challenge was basically overcoming fears of eating certain foods and breaking barriers, right? The floor is open to the guys, and would like to find out what went through your mind, your body, your soul. That sounds like some R&B stuff.
Gladys
Huh?
Knight. Your mind,
Yeah,
body,
so we just
soul.
wanted to find out your view on the experience, and obviously my view as well, because there were some things that I also ate for the first time that, yeah. So
So, Lorenzo, if you don't mind, can you maybe set the tone as to what it was that we delved into, if I could say the least, and maybe paint the picture for us.
Yeah, I'll try and color it
Thank you.
as much as I can.
Thank you.
So it was very simply just a seafood surprise, if you want to call it that, right? So there was, what was on the menu? It was sushi, all kinds of it. There was prawn tails,
yeah,
right? Crumbed prawn tails, right? And squid.
What was that squid again? We ate
The
Firecracker.
firecracker squid.
firecracker squid.
Yes,
Okay.
specifically. You know?
Yeah,
That was exactly what
I
it
thought
was.
we were gonna have like something very hot or something, but it was quite tasty. Yeah,
It was.
Yeah.
It was really tasty.
Brian.
Yeah, I certainly I can say I actually broke the barrier because like I've always had like a fearful approach towards seafood, and for me, like I think it's actually driven from having like an allergy, right? So, but it turned out fine, and I would love to actually go through the same experience again.
So, if I may ask, what were you feeling when you had? I think you had the squid.
Yes, it did.
How did you psych yourself up, or what happened?
Well, there was a bit of discomfort, right, at the start of it, but then like the more I dipped into it, I think the more my body kind of like adjusted and it got used to it, and I think it was very scrumptious. It was fine. I enjoyed it. Yeah.
You also had sushi, right?
Yeah.
And how was that?
It was different from the one that I tried actually, because I think the one that I tried for the first time was the one that actually carried me away from the entire experience as a whole. But then this one, it actually went in quite very well. So I enjoyed it. Looking forward to try it again.
That's good.
Wow.
Maurice, what do you say?
Hey guys, I'm sure I have a lot to say about this matter. It was a tough one. It definitely broke a few barriers. I was excited about some things and some things not really excited about. I'm glad we've overcome some of these hurdles, so to speak, the unofficial hurdles or unseen hurdles. It was tough to to muster up the strength for some of the things, especially the squid. Not the squid. What was
You
it?
didn't have the squid.
Yeah, I
which I'm
didn't have
very
the squid.
disappointed about.
That's just something, the barrier I could not reach at this time, guys. Forgive me. The prawn sushi. I had that, but it was very tough to actually get through it. It was a bit of a challenge. I think it took me like 10 minutes to eat one small piece.
But you can certainly say you've overcame your fears, right?
I don't say it's a fear. You're messing with my street cred here. I've overcome certain hurdles, yes. But I think that it's one of those things that I understand why now I didn't eat it in the first place. It was tough for me. Like physically, the piece of sushi was tough. It makes sense that it was raw, but I felt like I was actually eating into this animal, and like the meat is pulling apart and all that. Like, and it was stuck together at certain points, and I was like, I just couldn't do it. I think one of my mistakes was also dipping it into that brown sauce. What is it called again?
The soy sauce.
That, yeah. It
You're
was
such a way with words.
dude, you know me, I'm a regular Shakespeare over here. Kidding, obviously. Yeah, so it was a bit tough for me to get through it, because it's something that's totally new to me, and also it was difficult to bite through it, to chew through it. So that kind of put me off, and I'm actually grateful I had that last. Some of the other pieces, they were not as bad as what I initially thought. I actually enjoyed it. I won't even front about it. Like, it was a good experience.
Yeah.
I think it obviously, getting to this point, it touched more than just eating a piece of fish or eating certain foods. As you guys know, that I'm very strict with the things that I eat or that I don't eat. So it was more than just a food barrier, but it was a breakthrough on a lot of things as well, on a personal level.
Yeah.
From a cultural perspective, and that's one of the things that I wanted to actually think
Yes.
on. Like, in my home, is in not just hometown, but my actual home, nobody really eats sushi. The furthest we went is hike and snook. That's it. So getting to this point, it's totally uncharted territory for me, and even for my family. So it was a breakthrough, because sometimes we look at things and we take it for face value, and then we actually don't understand the deeper part about. I don't know what is the deeper part about it as well, but there's a lot to it than just a piece of fish on rice.
Yeah.
I don't want to go too much into it. I think as we continue the discussion, we'll cover a lot more. But it was an interesting experience, to say the least. Some things there, it's like never do again. Some things I'm open to trying it again as well.
Obviously, like, I'm just throwing this to everyone on the table, like,
Well, sorry, guys. Well done, Maurice. Firstly,
Well done.
Thank you.
Well done.
well done, well done,
Thank you.
and well done to me as well.
Yeah,
but
well
you
done,
also
bro.
well done, guys. Yeah.
yeah, so now that the congratulations are in order, I might as well just bring my point. So, like Maurice touched on a very important point, culture. So, obviously, like, I want to delve deep into the cultural differences, because, like, food can be like a huge factor. Like, I've heard some people saying that, like, one of the things that I didn't enjoy about a specific country was their food.
Yeah.
Right, and it affected the whole entire experience, whether they went there on a job, right? And because the food just wasn't in line with what they
Familiar.
or familiar, and they just didn't enjoy the entire experience. So, like, just on the subject of cultural differences, how important is food?
Yeah, that's an interesting thing to speak about, because I think, before I answer your question, the one thing about this experience was a lot of misconceptions.
Yeah.
So we have this misconception, and we have this, we prejudge the experience or the food. We look at it and be like, oh no, that's disgusting, lack of a better word, And that could be someone's delicacy, it could be someone's daily.
Someone's craft.
Yeah, and what people they eat to survive. So we now go into this with blockers, and we feel that there's no way you could see yourself eating this or whatever. So now you go into that in this fearful state, and you deprive yourself to some extent of a wonderful experience. Because I mean, if we look at a pineapple doesn't look appetizing as it grows.
That's very true, yeah.
It's prickly and it just looks funny. It's like, why would you? But then as soon as you cut through it, it's like, oh wow,
Yeah.
why didn't I, eat this before? So that's one of the things that I think we actually broke through on this experience that we had. The other thing is, in my opinion, from what I've seen, the food I think there's also a saying about it that the food is a way to a man's heart or something like that. Anyways,
Something along those
let's not
lines.
get too much into that. But yeah, in every culture, there's certain foods and
Yeah.
certain staples that people actually take part in regularly.
Yeah.
So with asking the question about food, it's like if you go to someone's house and you turn down their staple or their prime piece of food, it may be seen as an insult.
That's true.
And people take things, I mean, because food feeds your body, right? And without feeding your body, you could die. So it's basically your lifeline. And if I'm giving you the prime piece of my plate of food or what we've prepared for the day, and you deny
Yeah.
me the opportunity of sharing this with you, or breaking bread with you, it is equivalent to spitting in someone's face. That's how some people see it.
Yeah.
Okay,
And,
before I
and they could even
counteract,
take it to as far as turning into enemies for that.
yeah, true. Before I counteract, Lorenzo, like, what do you think about cultural differences when it comes to food? Because it's also very important. Just imagine yourself, like, getting into a relationship with someone, right? And then living together and realizing that we're actually different in what we like. And that could ultimately lead to you guys, like splitting up, because obviously, like, those differences are irreconcilable.
Yeah.
So what are your views on that take?
No, I must agree with Maurice quite adamantly. I mean, food is very personal to people, right? Not even just to the extent of saying, okay, I've taken hours to prepare this lavish meal in my household. It's a lavish meal, right? And you as a visitor just turn it down just because you feel like it may not be something that you'll enjoy, right? Not because you've had experiences of it. To say that you can or not say that I'm not going to enjoy that. But just in that experience on its own, it's very insulting from what I've become accustomed to, right? And earlier we were having a conversation off the record, which is now on the record, that we were raised in a way that just going to someone's house, right, a neighbor, a friend, or whatever the case is, don't turn down an offer from them, especially if it's food, because it can easily be deemed as a sign of disrespect, right? And I mean, this is just amongst neighbors, right? Imagine, to your question, if it's with a partner, if it's with family,
Yeah.
right? I think it's aside from it being so personal, it's also very social, right? I mean, we broke kind of bread, theoretically speaking, as friends, right? So I think it's a unifier, right? And I think that if it's not taken seriously and not treated with the right level of sensitivity, I think can also be like a separator, for lack of a better way of saying it.
Can I play the devil's advocate here? Because I wanted to counteract on Maurice, but then I quickly realized that you also, like, speaking along the lines. So, and I'm glad that you actually did. So what happens then if you're rejecting the gesture purely on health reasons? That maybe you might have some allergy. Yes, you've prepared, and this meal is actually special to this family, and this meal is not offered to anyone, and it's being offered to you, and there you are turning it down for health reasons. Are you still spitting on someone's face?
I don't think so. I think we always have this conversation as well with Maurice, and I think Lorenzo as well. So basically, I think, yes, with you visiting someone's house and them offering you a plate of food, and they really went out of their way, like, to cook, and that's not your, let's say, whatever they've cooked, it actually, and you turn it down. I don't think that it's a sign of disrespect, right? I think it's just basically, the person also needs to understand, as much as, they need to understand where you're coming from as well, right? You've mentioned health issues. What if it's also in terms of religion?
Yeah.
What if it's in terms of, okay, it could also be part of health, where I'm a vegan. I've just decided
Yes.
to be vegan. And now you serving me
Meat.
meat or food with dairy products.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? So, and there's I don't know, there's this one, I don't know the actual, the sickness or whatever it is, where people are allergic to eggs. And most foods comes with eggs. Like there's eggs in the ingredients.
Yeah.
So you need to really be careful when it comes to offering people. If you have that, if you have a home where you allow people in and out, and you get what I'm saying, and you're serving food, we need to start knowing people what their preference as well.
It's a very,
You get what
very
I'm saying?
important point you're raising.
People's preference, their background, where they come from. And I personally wouldn't take it as an insult.
Yes.
I would offer you something,
Yeah.
and if you say you don't eat it, I'll be like, cool, can I get you something else?
Yes.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And if not, and that's how I am. I also have those, I won't say it's a phobia, but it's something where
Quirks.
I don't eat everything.
Yeah.
So I would come to your house, and if you cooked something that I don't eat,
Yeah.
and I'm hungry, I'll tell you, can I have dry bread or bread and butter or something? And if you don't have that, it's still fine.
Yeah.
And that's not only, I do that
So then,
with my family as well.
Okay, so then, tell me then, how do you approach that where someone has actually offered you something, right? And you don't want to kind of like disrespect them or come across as someone that's being disrespectful to their gesture, and still preserving your vegan ways if you are vegan. And here's meat. We've properly prepared it for you. We heard that you're coming, and we decided to prepare this meal, and it's against you. Like, we are having just an open conversation now. You're about to reject the gesture. So how do you approach that? Because I feel like a lot of people would walk away, like he said, and he made a very interesting point in saying, like, some people could even like look at you as an enemy, because of that.
I would obviously explain to them the reason why I took up veganism. You get what I'm saying? It could be for health issues. Whatever it is, I'll explain to them my journey. And then there, I would tell them, unfortunately, I cannot accept this.
But
That's
so-
what I'm saying.
And what I said earlier is, it was a very important point that you raised, because on the flip side of that statement of saying that it's disrespectful for one person to turn down another person's food because it's part of their culture and this is their practices that they practice on a daily basis. Similarly, on the opposite side, it's against my beliefs in my culture
Yes.
not to take food from people
100%.
unless I know other things. I don't
Yeah.
want to go too much into it because it's like there's no set blueprint or formula.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of things to take into account. One of them being allergies, one of them being the health reason, all what you guys have raised. And it could also just be the preparation thereof. Because you may say that, as a literal example, I eat cauliflower. But if you tell me you just boiled cauliflower and put salt, I don't eat that cauliflower. So now, as a
Cauliflower.
exactly the ones for that's been to university. so now it would. And here's my issue about accepting food and eating anyway. Right? Is besides all the other things, just specifically on the preparation thereof. This guy. This is another sensitive topic. It caused a lot of fights between buddies there.
We shall remain nameless.
Yeah, I don't want to get into too much into it. But just that example of the preparation, right? For me, I personally don't want to eat food that doesn't taste good to me. And I it may not sit well, and I may bring it up and all that. I wouldn't want to intentionally get myself sick. So why would I want to go through with it? So for me, I feel that there's there should be a mutual understanding between both parties. Just the one, so the one from the one side, it's like, okay, I understand your culture and I respect it, and I will try to adhere to it.
And you'll try and be respectful in also saying
That this is
where I
exactly, and then vice versa. Look at me and explain to me that, or understand where I'm coming from as well. And also, let's explain to each other the differences with the culture. Because in your house, you may say that this is customary. As soon as you walk in, you offer someone this, that, or the other. In my culture or my belief system, it's I'm not taking anything. I just got here. I need to scout out things. I need to understand a lot of other things before we can go to other things.
Yeah.
So just a quick question.
Hey, you've
you
been
know, we
burning.
know-
I actually
you know that. Listen to this. So listen to this, right? Let's say you traveling. I'm sure you would probably be one of those guys. They stop at the airport, like this border security, where you pack your own food in your luggage. Because I mean, like,
It was confiscated from you.
yeah, or like, because he doesn't eat a lot of things, like, you get what I'm saying? And so they would say, like, okay, you brought your own whatever noodles, you brought your own meat, you brought your own. No, you get fined.
I'm the type of person that will be happy to be fined for that as
You'll
well.
be
I'm like,
yeah.
it's okay, just as long as it's not over a certain amount, I'm willing to pay that fine, that sacrifice. Because again, like I'm saying, that's from my upbringing. That's how it is there. So just the same way that people expect the one party to understand that this is how it goes, that in that side, let's have this mutual understanding, mutual respect to communicate this thing. Because I think that's the flaw with many relationships, is the communication breakdown.
Yeah.
And is that also not breaking down cultural barriers as well? Just having the conversation to say that this is actually how I was raised. I mean no disrespect.
Exactly.
right?
But then sometimes you're not offered the opportunity to explain.
Exactly.
So then in which case, like the worst is going to be assumed. Yeah.
Absolutely.
But coming back to, you mentioned about, relationships as well. And I think we spoke about it before, and I mentioned that myself, I would compromise on certain foods. You get what I'm saying? And that is also to
break barriers.
to break barriers, and also for it to be a healthy relationship.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying?
Sacrificing
Sacrifice whatever. Because once I feel that if I feel that this person sees that this guy is not willing to sacrifice, what am I doing here? You get what I'm saying? I definitely would consider. Yeah.
And are there any limitations to the considerations?
Without
Yes.
getting too specific.
There is, like, you know what it is,
cool,
but
cool.
yeah, like,
I think we'll delve into that further on another episode. For now, we'll leave it at that. But no, I'm glad that there's that open-mindedness, because I think this is also how this whole experiment came about, right? Speaking about how open-minded we are, and I can admit I'm the first one to put my hand up to say I'm not open-minded with food. Like, I eat this and that's it. Like, don't add something else and be like it's the same, but just add it. No. I eat it like this and that's it. So, like a good example is mealie meal porridge, right? If it's too lumpy, if it's too watery, if it's too thick, hey guys, we're having big problems. And it's also like, look, I'd eat it, right? But I'm not necessarily going to be happy about it. Now people's gonna be like, but are you an ingrate and all that stuff? I'm like, dude, if you prepare the stuff, just prepare it right, done. Then I eat it.
You know
if
what
you
I'm
didn't
trying
prepare it right, then that's when we're gonna get to that point where it being too thick. And if it's too thick, we might as well just add tomato gravy, and then it's no more breakfast. We add tomato gravy and steak and everything.
yeah, right.
You know what I'm trying to echo without actually just getting like too technical about this topic. What I'm echoing here is like, the differences. You know, I think we have to get to a point where we accept each other's differences, because, like, I think someone mentioned something about preference here.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mentioned.
yeah, you mentioned preference, right? So, like, we all have our own preferences, right? And sometimes your preference may not sit well within a certain group, and you know how societies actually raises, right? So, like, we have to, like, move in groups. We have to believe in one thing, right? So for me, I feel like food, because food is so important, it unifies people, like you guys said. So, you know,
Yeah.
it brings people together. And by the same token, it could also separate people,
Yeah.
you know. So how do we then bridge that gap?
It's the communication, because you cannot bridge a gap for a barrier that will never be broken. It's just a matter of communicating that this is why this barrier exists.
Because you see, here's the reason why I actually place the greatest emphasis on this, because sometimes it's not even a matter of open-mindedness.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. It's a physical, well, not physical. It's a meta. What's the word? It's a barrier that exists, and it's not necessarily a matter of. It could be a religious matter, and it could be. There's various things that it could be, but it's one of those no-go zones, and those zones you just stay away from it. Like, it doesn't matter what happens, it's not going to be crossed. So let's not get into.
So what are we saying? Are you saying that, like, in terms of? So I just wanted to understand as well, and you know, when let's say with the fish, and I've asked you, did you psych yourself up? Did you think about it mentally first as to how you're going to overcome this? Because on my side, you know, with things that I don't eat, I have to think about it mentally. You know, and even at home, you know, they would cook things and they'd make me aware of it. I'll be like, no, I'm not going to eat that. You know, because they know. One example that I can tell you, when growing up, I was in Crich. And anyway, yo, guys,
Preach.
they fed us, what's this? Lucky Star. Fish poachers.
Yes.
They fed us that, and that time I didn't like it. Up until today, I don't
Still
eat
don't
it.
like it.
I don't like it. There was this one time at my grand's place, I was a kid running around. I ran into the house. I said, I'm hungry. She said, there's food in the bread bin. Opened the bread bin, took the bread there, went out, took a bite of it. Yeah. Guess what?
Bullshits. Lucky Star.
Yo, guys, I was like, I spat it out, I threw it away. But I just wanted to, that experience that I had, you know, when I was a little boy, like,
Kind of
and
left a
that is
scar.
why I carried it with me.
Yeah.
Because probably whoever prepared it didn't prepare it well enough.
Yes.
Didn't make it like tasty for me to
Enjoy it.
enjoy it. And it stuck with me
Yeah.
throughout my life.
Left a scar. Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? So I'm not saying that I won't try it now. I will try it. Even the fact that if it's prepared well, if someone tells me like, nah, that's good.
Yeah.
And I'll really taste it. There was a time where at work, I also don't eat this. There's these sardines, but someone prepared it with baked bread, right? And I tried it, and it was delicious. You know.
So, like we was saying earlier, you deprive yourself on that experience, this
Yes.
pleasure, where because of an experience that you had maybe previously that left a bitter taste to your in your mouth, literally.
Pun intended.
Yeah. But to answer your question there, shucks, I forgot what was your question again.
No, but you had honestly, you prepared yourself.
guy.
You had to prepare
Oh,
yourself
yeah.
mentally.
Yeah.
I think you also had to prepare yourself mentally, from what I've seen.
Me?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah,
So can I disagree?
Okay.
I mean, we've now spoken about this for a
Okay.
bit, obviously, for a bit.
Yeah.
And we know that this specifically was an issue. So
And
Maurice
that is-
kind of like had a lot of time to kind of build up to this particular point.
Yeah.
Right? but it's a valid question if you have to like actually psych yourself out to cross that barrier.
Guys, I think like with me, like there's guys that always speaks about like sheep head, and intestines and stuff like that, and people eat it. They eat it at home, but for me, I would really have to psych myself up eating there.
Is it maybe the fear of the unknown though?
I think so. Or I don't know, like maybe just the smell. Sometimes, in most cases, it's the smell, of something being prepared.
Yeah, I guess you eat with like more than just one sense.
Yeah, it's the same.
Okay, so here's a detour. What happens then if you actually find yourself like relocating to a different country where whatever you're accustomed to is no longer there? Like, for instance, you, Lorenzo, you've had the benefit to actually go to a different country, right? I'm sure when you actually looked at the menu, it was like, whoa, what is this now?
Yeah, absolutely. So look, it's an interesting experience. I think maybe speaking just from a personal standpoint, I think it's beneficial being open to try things. Right. I think for me, I don't have religious and obviously this is not a downturn on anyone else that may have religious barriers when it comes to food, but I don't. Right. So I think for me, the only barriers I have are just not knowing what this thing is going to taste like. Looking at something and it's like, oh, this doesn't look appetizing.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And then my appetite is spoiled, right? Yeah, I think for me, going to another country, wanting to experience the culture, I am settled with the fact that I know that food is a direct like relationship to that. Do you know what I'm saying? So how do I experience and engulf myself in a culture of someone that, or a people that I'm not part of, without also experiencing that as well? Even to just like a certain degree. Do you know what I'm saying? I can listen to the music, I can wear the clothes, I can do the activities that they do, but if I don't eat the food that they eat, to a certain degree, obviously, taking all things into consideration, am I really experiencing their culture?
That's an interesting.
That's
question.
very powerful,
Yeah.
actually.
For me, on the other hand, like if when I travel, and this is locally, I haven't had the privilege of being a baller like Lorenzo. Yeah. When I travel, I usually check and prepare myself, for where I'm going to, where the eateries and all those things, so that I kind of gauge what's familiar, what's in my zone, and I seek that out. So I will also look out for some of the basics, but it's a very, very powerful point, because the culture thing and humanity, I always look at it and I'm like, okay, but there's this shift between, or there's these tectonic plates that separates us, and not just underground, emotionally, mentally, there's these plates that is separating one culture from the other, and it's simple things in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
And one of those things, like you were saying now, is that you go through all the other things, the food, the activities and stuff, and the dress style and stuff.
Yeah.
But I always ask myself that what would happen in those situations. Am I really then a not humanitarian, man, but like something along those lines, where I'm like, if you want to be a supporter of the human, or peace between the human race, can you get peace with misunderstandings, with barriers, with those type of things, because like we said, there's these misunderstandings when it comes to cultural practices because of the food. Like some people will be like, you cannot eat that food because that's not good for you, it's disgusting. I'm sorry for being this like brutal, but this is what people say. So as the recipient of such a comment, that's an insult. And that will the recipient feels as strong as the sender of this message, and they now will not have any form of relationship besides a bad relationship from there, and that's not good. We cannot live harmoniously in such situations. So I asked myself, then how would you then break through this? And this was again one of those opportunities to cut through these barriers. But I also still cement that there's certain things that cannot be crossed. I will not even get to that bridge.
So here's an interesting question. So let's say religiously, so you visit the UAE, and there they eat everything. So basically, let's say everything.
And they pride themselves in their culture, by the way.
They pride themselves in the culture, and you visit then one of the delicacies there is like camel testicles. Would you then?
No, those are part of those barriers, my friend. They are on that bridge that I'm not even going close to. You know, it's like when you are traveling.
I mean, look, the one barrier has been crossed because religiously, you get what I'm saying. So
No, it's like, guys, it's like, you know, the bridge is 10 kilometers away, but I'm not turning into that 10-kilometer radius. I'm like, no ways, I'm going a total opposite direction.
It's actually a good point, X, that you raised. But okay, Maurice, now, hypothetically speaking, right, let's create a scenario. You go to the UAE for professional purposes, right? So you're going to stay there for a year long. And you shop everywhere. You just can't seem to find the food that you want, right? Or the food that you prefer. And you are forced to now try what you've defined as something that you'd never go beyond. So in such instances, what do you then do? Because that's the very experience that could actually make the entire experience a bad one or even a worse one. Just one small thing.
Or even a better one.
Or even a better one for some of us. Maybe like he might have actually, dipped in on the and he liked it. Maybe that's why he's bringing it up.
Look, for me, I'm like, it's funny. I'm a fussy eater, but I'm not a fussy eater at the same time. So it's very simple. It's very simple. I'm a person that
Cut your poetry and like
I'm going to answer.
Sure.
So the situations that may arise that would force me into an uncomfortable situation where I have to eat something that's unfamiliar to me.
Yes.
I could just eat something simple like dry bread. Noodles, things, the basic things. I could survive on that. I would then try and balance out my the dietary intake with multivitamins and all those other things. If, however, it's a matter of life and death, that's a different story altogether. But if it's just for my comfort can be breached easily and I can have dry bread. For me, that's still comfortable. I would prefer that than eating things that like may not agree to my system or my eyes already, and I'll be like, nope, this is a no-go zone, and I would stay as far as I possibly away from it as possible. So I wouldn't, and it wouldn't bother me. Like even with the absence of having the luxury amenities, if I understand it, it's a professional experience that I have to go through, and it's work related. I need to do this for whatever reason. I would do it with the absence of having my usual diet.
yeah.
So may I ask a question? This is for everyone.
Oh, thank you. Finally. I feel like
I
I'm
kind
on the
of feel
spot,
like
yeah.
it was directed at you. So there are things that we are governed by as individuals, right?
Yeah.
All these rules and whatever you want to call them. Are there those that you would forego, right, for you to experience things and maybe not just for the sake of experiencing it. Maybe in the instance of life and death, doesn't really matter. But would you forego like a religious parameter, a, a visual parameter? Oh, I'm used to seeing something that looks like this, but if it looks like this, it's the same thing. Doesn't look the same. I don't want to try it.
That's me.
Are there like just a general question? Are there other parameters that you would forego? And as far as we know, with Maurice,
Yeah, like
there are some that we wouldn't.
Yeah, a lot actually. Yeah, there's too many. But I mean, this was again, like I know we're harping on the same thing, but like if everybody understands that it was really a different moment in my life personally, it's something that's totally. So it's actually something that I've said from day one. I'll never eat that. I'm speaking about sushi now. And we've done it. I kind of enjoyed it. I say kind of because of some of the other stuff there, but like there were things that I wouldn't. Now I understand it was a misconception. It was prejudgmental of me, So that's proof that I was willing. I don't want to say am willing just now. You find a lot of people coming here and saying, no, taste this, taste that. Guys, no. Well, I've had enough now that will last me for another 10 years, maybe 4 years later. We'll try
Next
something.
week, same time,
Same time, same place.
Same time, same place. We have a date.
No, I think I think this is good because we'll have more challenges, and yeah, so that in order for us then to speak about it, and as we said, we're also trying to close these barriers or overcome them, right? So I think we're just open to a lot of other challenges. Okay, not a lot of other challenges. We'll probably be selective. I'm looking at Maurice. I'm looking at Maurice and he's holding his breath. Brian, what do you think?
No, look, again, like I had a preconceived notion about certain foods, particularly seafood, right? Because of how maybe that particular, you guys heard me saying that this sushi that I tried didn't taste exactly the same as the one that I tried before, which would have obviously ruined my entire experience about sushi and my outlook on it. So, like, I was prepared, right, to kind of like break that barrier, because then I know that, like, from a health perspective, right, if I take something we drank pills afterwards, right, for some allergic reaction, and I haven't reacted to it yet, but then sometimes I find, I tend to actually react badly on these things. It was calamari before. So for me, not to try this, it's not a matter of preference. I would have loved to, but then I understand from a health conscious perspective that I can't. Yeah.
So I heard you asking Maurice about traveling for a job or so. What would you do if you find yourself in a situation like that?
Well,
in terms of the food.
Yeah, it's very important, because I think Maurice actually did touch base on it as well. So, like, what we tend to do is, like, when we're looking at our interests, right, we tend to have a tunnel vision, or and we don't think about these other things, these small things, like, such as like food, and all of that. So I would most probably try, and Lorenzo also did make a very interesting point in saying that if you are if you are willing to touch base on someone's, cultural stance and all of that, so are you really fully in, or are you half-hearted? So I would have to do my research, what are the foods that these people actually consume, familiarize myself with the environment, and just, if I'm from a health conscious perspective, again, check where do I sit, because it's not every food that people from UK, for instance, if I wanted to go to UK, I wouldn't be allergic to everything that people from UK actually prepare. You know what I'm saying? So I would have to understand, what's, within their offerings, where do I fit and all of that. So again, a colleague of mine went overseas and he didn't do that. That sort of
due
diligence, and he didn't like the entire experience, because now he's there and he's experiencing everything in real time, and it's not a pleasant experience for him in that case. So for me, like, I like to, if I'm interested in something or some place, or even like some culture, like I like to know even the small things, because it does help me in terms of, okay, where do I fit, or where can I actually play a huge part in. Yeah.
I recently and some time ago, I was invited to a friend's unveiling in Soweto. Right, so everything happened. I think it was a couple of months ago, and I don't drink, and we chilled at his place, and the
After tears.
after tears and everything, and these guys actually came with what Umkombote,
Yeah.
and he gave us. He gave it, and
Did you have it?
I heard of it. Yeah, I was like,
Brian never heard of that.
I
They say
heard
it's
of
only
it,
for men.
and that.
This guy.
And he took a picture, and people were like looking at me because I was like the only fair guy there, and we were chilling, and the people were looking at me drinking this, and I think the experience was awesome,
That's great. Man.
because I just wanted to show people as well that, I'm available to learn.
Especially nowadays, we are
Yeah.
so interconnected, right?
Yeah.
From a tribe perspective, sometimes like back then, like, well, where I come from, like, you wouldn't really like marry outside like your community. Like, you already knew that, I'm gonna marry that girl, or even your parents even tell you, like, have you noticed that girl? But then like now, like, you don't have to. Like now, like you can go marry someone from KZN, even if you are from Joburg. So now we are so interconnected, So it does make sense that like maybe like some people would still look at you that way, because some areas, they're not as interconnected as you think they are. Like they still like live like in that approach of like Xhosas with Xhosas, yeah, Zulus with Zulus, But now we kind of, and like, again, like we also, as a closer person, like when I encounter other Zulu people, there's things that I don't know, right? That they do or they consume. I'm like, oh, okay. And because we are interconnected, I'm always willing to try things. So I'm sure you also like took something from that experience.
I did.
How was it?
The experience was great. It was really great. We actually finished it, and
you couldn't walk. That's what I heard.
nah, man, it was just a glass, and we had of it. Yeah, and that, yeah. So I enjoyed the
So
experience.
you found people like looking at you differently, right? And how?
Yeah, it was basically people were looking at me, almost like, is this guy really gonna do that? Let's see. You get what I'm saying? And I did it, and it's like it was so welcoming, because people were like, nah, this guy is like. And I think it's just baby steps now,
Yeah, I think that's a very important attitude to have, because that's exactly, because if you look at it now, exactly what Brian is saying about the barriers that existed before. If this is your community, you marry within those boundaries. You don't go out of it. Now, because of a change of mindset, a change of attitude, people are now able to break those boundaries, because they are not physical boundaries. And even if they are, it's just a matter of opening the gate, or climbing over the fence and going to. I'm not saying people should cross borders illegally, but I mean, like in our yard, they lock the gate and be like, guys, you don't go outside and play outside. And then the girl walks past, I'm jumping over, guys. Hi, my name is Tiki Tiki. But so I think that's the right attitude to have, where we try to build a new future, a new human race, where we actually in support of one another. And one of the things that we need to bridge is this misconceptions about these boundaries that do not exist. I could understand if you're saying that a person that lives in the ocean and I'm not willing to go swim down there, those are boundaries we are not going to pass. But other than that, it's like, yeah.
So there's this book. What was it? I think we read it in school, where these kids where they were stranded on an island. These boys, and what actually happened is there was nothing to eat, and they were about to die. I think one of them actually died. I'll get the name of the book, and they started eating.
The carcass.
What would you do?
I wouldn't, dude. Like, I wouldn't.
Also,
I wouldn't.
So you'd rather die.
Yeah, I would rather die.
No.
Lorenzo, you
some
had
things are
you,
so unconventional.
You
that,
also had an opportunity to try crocodile,
Cannibalism.
right?
Oh.
Did what?
How was it? And how was that experience?
It was interesting.
Seems
Tasted
like seems like
chicken.
Lorenzo has actually tried out everything there is.
Dude,
Not
this
everything.
guy's an adventurer.
But like I'm saying, I'm down for. I'm very experimental when it comes to food. Like I'm saying, food for me is very social. And the thing is, and it's again just from a personal point of view, I'm not the person that goes out drinking,
Yeah.
likes partying. I'm not social like that.
Yeah.
I'm social when you
Traveling.
break bread.
Like, like
Do
the
you know what I'm
Italians. You will,
Another podcast. Another episode. But yeah, and that's the thing. I think it's so deeply ingrained in those experiences for me. Do you know what I'm saying? So I'm not gonna find that. Most likely, I'm not gonna find it with anything else. Answering the question that you didn't ask, but nonetheless.
So, guys, are we up for another challenge? It might not be the same thing, seafood, right? It could be something else,
like we said, 10 years from now, maybe.
no, not 10
You
years.
know
but
what?
Like,
You know what? Next time I'm choosing.
No ways.
You are safe. You are safe, Menkel, because I'm not a foodie. You are
Okay,
safe,
yeah, I know you're not a foodie.
So you are
What
safe.
does that mean, though?
Yeah, like it's we'll discuss it offline.
anything else to add, guys?
Yeah, I
about
mean,
the
I want you to know,
challenges?
like, from everything that's been spoken about, there's two things. One, well, Lorenzo is spoken about his travels, but we didn't get more information as to where it
Yeah.
was.
Oh,
What? Tell us,
Break
Lorenzo.
break it down over here, bro.
Because
Like,
you see, when we talk about Lorenzo, you traveled in a different country, like you know, like it could be just an assumption that like he went to a different country within the African
Yeah.
content, but
Yeah.
actually, like
like
you went from
Lesotho, it's still part of South
yeah,
Africa.
I mean,
I'm kidding. But yeah,
so tell us about your experience then, Mr. Rufus.
okay, sure. So I was very fortunate enough to travel to Spain and to Italy. I think just from a geographical point of view, they are very fish heavy. So it really wasn't anything that I think I wasn't prepared for, if that makes sense. I did get to try squid. Yeah, I had the opportunity to try squid for the first time. Like mini squids. I don't even know how that happens, but like a whole it was so interesting. A whole like plate of paella, which is it's like a seafood medley, but like mini squids. It was the most bizarre thing, but it was delicious. You know, we just went for it. Balls to the walls.
That's in Spain, right?
This is in Spain.
Okay.
Yeah, but they, like I'm saying, they're very fish heavy. They really like their vegetables as well. There's this like not famous. It's a common soup which is also like a staple in Spain. It's called gazpacho. It's like a tomato like soup,
No.
energy drinks, something along those lines. And then in Italy, it was somewhat similar, very fish heavy. Did get to try a lot more other meat. You know, we had some beef and I think we had lamb as well. I can't
spaghetti
remember.
bolognese.
We made our own pasta, which was also very exciting.
At the restaurant or what?
So this was actually like at I think it's like a private something or the other, right? But like people can go and make their own mozzarella. They can go and make their own gnocchi. It's very interesting. This is part of what I'm alluding to in terms of saying that this is part of the experience, part of the culture.
Yeah.
You know, now it's not only just eating what you made; it's making the
Yeah.
actual thing. You know,
Giving you the opportunity to.
yes,
yeah.
it's very engrossing, and they're super passionate about how they prepare. It's very festive. It's very it's innate, obviously. And I must also say they're also very big on the flavor of the thing. You know, they don't like a
Yeah.
lot of seasoning. Don't ask for salt. It's very disrespectful. You know, even if you just want to add flavor in our context, we add flavor with salt. It's very disrespectful. So it's a very interesting way of life on the opposite end of the hemisphere.
And pizza.
That's like basic. You just touched on basic things. Okay, it's good.
And also you must know I'm not from Italy, you know. So I know there's certain people in our midst that's from Italy. So we would like some more details around this.
I think he wants more. Is fish in case he goes there? He'll be like,
It'll be like
I'll only
boy
eat
Lorenzo.
pizza. I only want pizza.
No, man. But look, you need to experience it for yourself, honestly.
Yeah, and that's another thing that I actually wanna ask you guys. Should the opportunity arise, obviously when things subside in terms of the current situation that the world finds themselves in, are there any places that's like been on your to-do list, the burning places that you'd like to visit for this experience culturally, food, from a food perspective, music, and all those type of things? And if there are, like, which things actually draws you to those places?
Locally, I think locally, I've always heard. I've been to Cape Town. I've always heard about the fish and the snook, and I've tried snook, but I just didn't like it, the way it's prepared.
Yeah.
And I think you were speaking about a place called Snookies or whatever, and we spoke about when everything subsides, maybe flying down and, experiencing that as well.
For sure.
That's for me locally.
Anyway, internationally?
I haven't thought of that. I would like to travel internationally, but as I said, I would definitely try their food here.
Zingwe?
Well, the thing is with me, I'm quite dispassionate about food, and as you guys would know, so
Not necessarily for food, but just in terms of travel. And then if there's a place that you're keen on visiting, like what draw you to?
yes, I wanna try German beer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I was very fortunate actually to offer an experience to a German friend of mine who stays where I stay as well. So we went to this very nice restaurant where I said to him, you're gonna try South African food, right? Because he actually prepares his own food based on what he's used to. So I said, okay, cool, let's try South African. So he was able to tell me about German beer, right? So basically they drink it while it's hot.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's what I would like to try out. And
So you haven't tried it out yet?
No, I haven't.
So you'd like to go to Germany?
I would like to go to Germany and actually try it out.
You can't experience German beer not in Germany.
Not in Germany,
know what
exactly.
I'm
It's not
saying?
the same. Even
Yeah.
the guy did actually explain that there are some places where they actually offer something similar to that here in South Africa,
it's
where
not.
he's been, but it's just not the same. So you need to be in that environment in order for you to actually feel it. And I'm present now.
Yeah.
Actually.
Yeah.
So I'd like that, and they actually pride themselves in beer because beer, they some places they prefer
Whiskey.
it's
Scotland.
in Scotland,
Yep.
right?
The Irish, they like the whiskey.
Yes, exactly. So,
Tennessee
but in
whiskey
Germany,
for
beer
this.
is their thing, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not a beer person, but for that, I would love to try it out.
And you, Maurice?
There's actually quite a few places, and one of them is France, and it's a very weird one for
Escargot.
me,
Escargot. You want some snails?
No.
Escargot, my cargo 160.
No. That's what I was about to say. It's very weird for me to say that because of it being the total opposite of my usual eating preference. I know the French are very elaborate with their cooking and they're very open-minded, to put it as blunt as possible. So there are a lot of things, I think the majority of the menus probably things I don't eat. Probably I'll be like, okay, is that water? Tap water or I would have that. Can I get 2 helpings?
So what are you trying out then?
No, I'm not. I'm not necessarily going there for the food, but the experience. You know, one thing like it's a very it links up to what you were saying earlier about the social experience with dining. You know, I see videos because obviously I haven't been there. I've seen videos. I've seen pictures of how people actually. Sit down in front of cafes and restaurants and break bread together, discuss different things. And for me, I think that break away from life, so to speak, from everything that's happening around you, because you know that life could be draining a lot of times. Whereas when you're able to break away in that way and sit down and have a good conversation with some people. There could be some some things that I may try. I mean, like they also have fish is universal as well, so there will probably be things that I would be able to eat. But that experience of that nightlife as well, that you sitting outside, and because they say actually in France, supper is not just a 1 hour or 30-minute type of thing. It's like the entire evening. So after work, people would break out and go to their cafes, their favorite restaurants, and sit like for 4 hours, 5 hours. And that's part of the culture of that region. There's also like obviously your wines and all those other things that I would like to experience, not necessarily to indulge, but to get to understand other things about it, because like the fermentation processes, the climate, all those things may be different, and that's why the result is different to what people would, just like what you're saying about the German beer. Yes, they may make it exactly the same recipe, but because of the climate and a lot of other factors, it may not be the same.
So would you try the wine?
No, not really. I'm not a person. If there's 0% alcohol, I would try it. I'm just not one to. Yeah, I don't want to get into all of that, but I'm not one for alcohol.
That's not for punks, eh?
I would have actually. It's one of my my burning desires to actually visit a vineyard and actually make a bottle without the without the alcohol. Just, you know, the grapes and all those things, need the grapes and whatever. Not with my feet as well, though. I'm not drinking that as well.
So how would you like to do that?
Probably on a press or maybe with my hands. I don't know, like, but preferably.
But what do they say? Like the real taste is when you have to put your feet in.
Exactly, because of the fungus, the bacteria that's in the feet.
Man.
It's gonna enhance the flavor. You know, I mean, it's like cheese, dude, like green cheese and all that stuff. Like it's bacteria that actually gets you to that point. So, you know, these are things that we just have to accept.
I think maybe we should try a challenge. I don't know if it's a challenge.
This guy's
Like
sticking on
let's
the
say
challenges.
different cheeses.
No, but you didn't ask Lorenzo.
Yeah, I was about to get to Lorenzo as well, because although he's traveled, I mean, you know, he's the savant here when it comes to traveling. But we still need to.
Where would you like
Because
to
out of
travel?
Proportion. For food, I really want to like try like a good dumpling.
Oh yeah.
Dombolo.
And that
but it's
Brian
like-
doesn't know about it. He thinks we're talking about the car. Eastern Cape, come get your boy.
Yeah.
But yeah, when I see videos of it rather, of people experiencing it on YouTube, it looks so good. It's like a Hong Kong.
Yeah, Chinese dumplings.
know,
Yeah. Would you prefer the one that has like the soupy contents, or the one that's more firm, like a samosa type of
Was it?
thingy?
You had it, you liked it.
The wontons.
Yeah, no, I think the soupy one.
Oh, okay.
I don't. For everyone who's listening, if we're saying it wrong, we apologize.
Yeah.
but the one that is in
Yeah.
like a bit of a soup, yeah.
Yeah.
It just looks so.
So the soup
Like
is
fulfilling,
inside
man.
the dumpling. Yeah.
So I think it's like filled. Sorry,
Yes.
it's like filled with like filling.
Yes, and then it's like a broth.
Yes, yeah. That would be it.
I think I saw like at one restaurant in Rosebank. someone ordered it. Yeah.
But you see, that's the nice thing about in today's world, right? Living in today's world, because like, especially here in South Africa, there's a lot of foreign investment, right? So you can actually go to all sorts of places, and you'll still find a Chinese restaurant, Italian's restaurant. So you get all these places actually offering the same things that you could travel for. You know, so like if you can look hard enough, you'll find these places that they exist within your native land, you know, like
Yeah.
sometimes you don't even have to go that far.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the one time we went, Zaven and myself, we went to a place, Turkish restaurant, and we tried their coffee. We looked at the menu, but I think we decided at that time we're
Yes.
not gonna get to, because it was like a lot of things, and you had to unpack what are you actually ordering, you know, because someone would be like, it's like a wrap, and you'd be like, okay, what's in the wrap? What's the wrap made of? Because some people may make the wrap with meal, others make it with flour, others make it with different things, so, or corn thingy, I don't know what's all those type of stuff. But anyways, there's a lot of differences to it, so we would need to understand those things. So that's why we're like, okay, let's just have the coffee. But it was an experience nonetheless.
Yeah.
And
You know the coffee.
oh, the Ethiopian coffee.
Yeah.
That was a special experience as well. That coffee was delicious, eh? And after that, I was like, okay, I need to link up with more Ethiopian people, because that was again another. That was actually a breakthrough, because not that I like have any problems with Ethiopian people. It's just like I didn't have close contact with Ethiopian people, but now after experiencing the coffee, it's like, okay, now I want to meet more Ethiopian people. So it's like, you know, this magnetic force bringing people together.
But they also say there's a lot of things that goes into preparing that coffee. Where, in
It's
terms
an
of
experience in its own.
what do you have to do?
It's
Roast the beans, and
yes.
there's a certain way you do things, and
So you roast the beans, then from there you grind the beans.
yeah.
So you can roast it to your preference. If you want a darker roast, obviously it's going to be a bit of a stronger coffee, and it will have that bitter taste. If you don't want it that bitter, then you roast it slightly less than a medium roast, as they say, these coffee aficionados. So after roasting it, you then grind the beans. There's a special teapot type of a thingy that you then boil the coffee in. You bring it to a boil. You let it you let the boil die down. I don't know what's the term that they use, and then you bring it to a boil again the second time. There's also a filter that they put in there. Then you drain some of the coffee out, and you bring the coffee back in. You let it boil the third time, and then you pour it out hot. And then they don't drink it with sugar. You can if you'd like to, but they have it either with salt.
Wow. Okay.
And there's
salt.
a lot of
That's
work in
interesting.
there. Eh?
Yeah, and then you can also have it with, there's like some leaf or some herb thingy that it's like very tiny leaves that they put there. You could now dip that in, it enhances the flavor. And it makes sense, because at first I was also like, why would you put salt in coffee, guys? Like, seriously. But then after thinking about it, what do you do with food to enhance the flavor? You add salt. So it's the same thing. Like in this case, you don't want a sweet coffee. You just want to enhance the flavor to experience that whole thing. And then that's why they get to that point.
That's interesting.
Exactly. It was such an experience for me. It was like, I can never speak enough about it, because it touched me so much, you know, and I was always looking forward to having it again.
So, you know, guys, like I think there's been a lot of interesting points being made here, you know, because I mean, there's a lot of things that come to mind when we talk about breaking cultural differences, you know, those barriers as well. So one thing that actually came to mind is also, for me, it's language as well, you know. I think Lorenzo made a very good point in saying that, like, you know, do you really have a vested interest in knowing about someone's culture, or are you just half-hearted about it? And what came to mind is, I know there was one particular soccer player who went to a different country, you know, to live his dream, but then the language barrier actually deterred him from actually realizing his dream. So you have those countries that actually really pride themselves, you know, like in such things, in such small things, like language is very important. Learn our language. And you know, some of the things we read about. So for you, Lorenzo, like having gone through, like, you know, like to European countries, like how did you find that? Like just being being at the restaurant, ordering food, because some countries like people don't know English.
Yeah.
If it's Italian, it's Italian, and like how did you find that whole experience in terms of like everything, not just food, just about everything?
I think, I mean, if we are speaking about languages and specifically European countries, Italy and Spain were very different in the respect that I think Italians, whether there's a notion that they're not or they are, I think they're a lot more open to trying to communicate with the tourists who may not necessarily converse in English, right? I actually remember one of the shops that we went to, and we walked into the shop, and the owner saw that we weren't locals per se, right? And he greeted in Italian, and we greeted in English, and then the conversation was around like where we were from. There was that formality, if you want to call it that. And as soon as we said we was from South Africa, he was like, "Oh, Mandela." I was like, "Yeah, Mandela." It was such a like an interesting experience, because I think there was a mutual understanding that yes, we're not from the same place, but I'm here in your store. I'm respecting your store, and I'm glad that you're respecting me as someone who isn't a local, right? I think Spain was a bit different. I think they're a lot more cemented in the way they live, right? And even not just speaking about languages, I think even the way they live is very interesting. I mean, everyone is walking everywhere. We were in Barcelona specifically. Everyone walks everywhere. If they're not walking, they're on bicycles. There's very limited like public transport, very limited vehicles on the road. It's a very interesting country compared to South Africa. But even I was saying to you earlier, we went to I think it's Mauritius last year, just a family
These
getaway.
guys traveling all over the
But I just wanted to explain like the language thing, right? So by default, if you are in Mauritius, because they were colonized by the French, that's their predominant language, right? That's their fundamental language. So it's a bonjour if you're there, right? But it was so interesting. As soon as you greet in English, it switches, and that's just then what the default language is. So wherever you are, if that's just how you identify, so to speak, that will just be the precedent going forward.
Yeah, I agree.
It's very interesting how different countries treat people who are not natively from there.
Yes.
Yeah, that was an interesting experience.
You know what you actually reminded me of? You reminded me of like a very particular soccer player, Gareth Bale, right? So as you guys may know, or maybe not, Gareth Bale plays for Real Madrid, and the fans and Gareth Bale, their relationship is very shaky because they actually feel like he doesn't not necessarily respect, but he doesn't have any regard for their culture, language being one of them. He's been there for like over 4 years, but he still doesn't know how to speak Spanish, right? So it's a problem to them. And again, this is for we spoke about where we would actually like to go in terms of like really exploring other countries, because it's really nice to go out and travel the world and learn about people's cultures. But then sometimes like you'll find yourself in a situation where it's just purely from a professional perspective. You're not actually actively thinking about other things, such as like being deeply vested in this culture, because he thought he's going there to play soccer and that was it. But then the people there, they are so, soccer unites people, brings people together, and so like you live it even outside of the pitch. You have to live it. So like what are your views on that, X? Because you've also made mention of the fact that you would like to travel the world, like such things. What comes to your mind?
Well, I think like for me, if it's 4 years, I would think that effort.
Would you penalize someone, like, let's say in your country, who just didn't take pride in knowing your languages and all of that?
I don't think so. I don't think so, but I won't penalize him. Again, we spoke about preference as well. But also, it might sound double standard as well, but anyway, I think just making the effort as well, to learn the culture or the language. I mean, if we look at football is not only about the actual sport.
Yeah.
It's about the culture as well. Because remember, you'll find out that you're in a country for, let's say, 2 or 5, let's say a few seasons, let's say 2 seasons. How many years is a season?
It's one.
1.
Yeah.
Okay, or let's say you're there for 5-10 years or so, right? And in this country, people has accepted you. Because remember, with football, it's either, yes, you have talent, but the people in the country can also play on your mental state.
Yes.
You get what I'm saying? So when they play on your mental state, meaning that you won't perform as you should
Yes,
perform.
exactly.
So basically, if I would, me personally, I would put in that effort,
Yeah.
right, into like learning someone's culture, learning the language basics.
Okay. I like what you just said. So let's look Maurice in. So Maurice, you've developed an interest in someone, let's say a very beautiful lady, right? But then like you guys are obviously from different cultural backgrounds. And then in the midst of the relationship, you kind of like establish some things that don't go along with your beliefs. Like, how do you treat such a situation then? And especially like in the subject of cultural barriers that we're trying to break.
I just want the record to show that although my hair is short, I'm not Dr. Phil. So
No, from your experience, you found yourself in that experience. Because
I don't think that was lost on anyone.
just making sure that
Well, you can
there's
be
no
Dr. Philly.
There's no misconceptions here. But, for me, it comes down to the communication, right? There are certain things that I believe from my side that are maybe quirks and things that's also negative. And there are things that I think they are just minor barriers or speed bumps, so to speak, that could be that we could work around, right? But there's the communication element has to come into play, and it's not actually only at that point. Just generally speaking, there has to be an open communication, and this is a very important point because it ties back down to what Lorenzo was saying as well. This guy, it seems like he's burning to say something. So with communication, it allows us then to be able to break those barriers. I mean, imagine we don't know sign language. We just look at each other. We don't say anything. We just walk by. Like, imagine someone could be in pain or anything, and you just look by, and the person's also just looking at you, and you looking at them, and we just walk past. The absence of communication causes chaos. So
True.
with I know I'm rambling about, but what Lorenzo said, what that guy did in that store was actually a gesture of kindness to break down those barriers, because he understands that he's an Italian and you guys are not speaking Italian. But he at least said, okay, let me go back to your roots. I know Madiba.
100%.
Even if he doesn't know where he lives, even if he doesn't know all the things about him, that was now that breakthrough. And from there, the conversation continued. What's this? How are you feeling it? Whereas if someone just walks in and be like, can I have bread, and take the bread and go? There's no interaction. There's no human connection.
I like that. And I'm going to pose this to Lorenzo. Because you see, like, let's not even go so far as now with Lorenzo's experience being outside the country. Inside the country, we also have like these cultural barriers where someone sees you, this one is black, and then they speak Sutu.
Yeah.
And you just don't understand the language. So you're like, I don't understand the language. And they look at you like,
You're trying to be funny. You supposed to.
you know.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, and they will continue to communicate in that language, you know. And I've seen people communicate in their languages. I'm like, how are they understanding each other? This one is speaking in their language, and this other one is speaking to they're speaking in their language. So it's like, you know, and some people actually, the message here is you should know it. You know, that's the message that's being driven. So if I walk into a store, this person is telling me that you should know this language.
No, but that doesn't make sense, because you should know. That's actually saying you should know. Have you then given up your time to teach me your language or your culture? You get what I'm saying?
For
So-
them to say that
yes,
you should know it.
I don't think that. Yeah, you can't tell me you should know it.
It's a different story if you
Yes,
your language
if
teacher at school.
if
and they'd
if
be
you
like,
were
"I've got
saying
to do
like, let me sit down with
Sometimes
you.
it's not said.
Yeah,
it's
but
implied, obviously, like in the body language. That
yeah.
like,
But guys, let's also be fair. Let's also look at it from the context of the person who is now the perpetrator in this
Yeah.
example. Let's say they are from a village. They've grown
Yes.
up in the village. This is their way of life. And they come to the big city and they look at you and they speak in a language and you're like, no, it's not happening. And then they're like, well, but you should. Their context is not actually wrong, because that's how they were raised.
And again, it comes back to what I was touching base on earlier, the communication.
Yeah.
So yes, there's communication, but there's not communication at the same time.
Yeah.
Because there's obviously a break there. The one is not understanding what the other one is doing. So when we're able to answer your question again, with those quirks, so to speak, that were found out to say that this is how this person's cultural beliefs are is different to my beliefs. There has to be that communication to understand, okay, what is the reason for this, and what is the reason that maybe I do not practice that. And then we look at, okay, can that be bridged?
Yeah.
If not, is there another way around it?
Yeah.
If not, you know, you look for all possible ways around it. If it's a matter of there is no solution, then there's no solution.
Yeah.
But a lot of the times you find out that it's Occam's razor. I think the simplest answer is always the right answer, something along those lines. But we need to then bridge that gap.
as long as it's not
of
John
communication.
Donne. 'Cause we always quote John
I'm
Donne.
always quoting John Donne. We have to bridge that gap, and I think with what you guys were speaking about, your experience traveling different countries. I haven't been to any country besides South Africa, but I've kind of tried to study the greetings, the basics. And I think that on its own sets a precedence to say, look, I'm willing to
Absolutely.
to greet you in your mother tongue, but further than that, no,
gonna take some
we don't
practice.
speak. Yeah, so you can teach me, and I'll be able to. And I think that would be the stepping stone to say, let's be buddies. You know, teach me this, teach me that. And a lot of times, like I know there's people who always teach each other swear words of their languages. Like I can tell you, I can tell you in many different languages rude things that people taught me, and I think I should actually speak about these things, and I should name the people's names who taught me these things, so they can be named and shamed for doing the wrong things.
You know, guys, I've been a perpetrator of this behavior. Not this one Maurice is talking about, obviously. I've been a perpetrator of expecting someone to know something because it was the language in this case, right? And I said, how is it that you don't know English, yet it's your language, right? So I was so sure that this is your language, right? And I'm adjusting to your language, but the person just doesn't know how to speak English, right? And well, not properly as I would have assumed, right? But then like the stigma that I had that like this is your language is almost like me like, you know, speaking French to a French person that just doesn't know how to speak French. And I'm like, how are you French and you don't speak French, right? So those are some of the experiences that you will actually encounter with people. And then you have to realize that just because you are Maurice, right, and you grew up in a very, very dangerous neighborhood, and the whole time you were just a soft guy that was playing with girls while everyone else was doing all these crimes, doesn't mean that you're dangerous. Because now you see, and we've got this thing of, I've got a friend of mine, right, Shiwan, he stays in Westbury, right? He's one of the nicest people the things that I've seen on TV about that neighborhood, I'm like, how are you from Westbury being this nice guy? And well, not even going that far. This gentleman right here
I
also
know, bro.
is from a ghetto neighborhood,
This guy.
but it's the softest. It's very soft.
No,
You know, like
no.
he's one of like you wouldn't take him to war. You know, and I was like, how are you? So those are the and when you think about those things, it's like wow, actually, like the stigmas that we carry, and I know this is like obviously a jokeable thing, but I mean they can be very serious at times. You can find yourself like with a person, right, because you were drawn into this person by just learning about the things, because maybe like you had an assumption that okay, because this person is this, or like this person is Asian, so Asians actually do things this way, and you'll actually find out that it's the complete opposite.
Absolutely.
And we need to speak about these things and really open ourselves up when we approach these things, because like they could be completely different from what we know or what we believe in.
That's very
Just
true.
to add, sorry, you want to go?
No, you first.
So I think just to add on that, Brian, I'm not going to obviously take too much time, hopefully not. But I think we need to also just be very courteous with ourselves in also not like always trying to hold ourselves to a standard of just automatically understanding everyone. Do you know what I'm saying? So if you find that you act on a stigma, like identify that and like forgive yourself for it, right? And because that's the only way that you're going to learn from it.
Yes, true.
Right? So I think like constant practice, constant identification of the fact that, hang on, did I actually, offend? And if the person doesn't take it that way, great, you're safe. But be courteous with yourself to make the mistake and then learn from it and then recoup.
Yeah, that's an important step. Learning from it and then moving forward from there. And understanding, because again, it comes back to understanding. Like if there's that unwillingness to understand that, okay, this is overstepping a certain boundary. That I know we spoke about boundaries a lot, guys. Forgive me, but where you prejudge based on someone's neighborhood that they grew up in, based on, and it happens actually so much.
Yes,
I
it
mean,
does.
I don't even want to go into the politics part of it, but just for a good example, right? People may say that my mother tongue is English, right? And some people say it's Afrikaans, it's English. But it's also not English at the same time. Because yes, I grew up speaking English, but it may not be the Queen's English or the Shakespearean English. Also, the neighborhood that I grew in, we had different words and we mixed up languages to make our own language, slang. So because of that, if we now assume that because I say my mother tongue is English and now you speak the way that Shakespeare spoke, and now you ask me, so
Thou
can
art.
I exactly? I'm talking about why are you talking about art? Like there's no art here on the wall yet. We didn't put up any art here, artwork. I'm not even an artist. Like that's Vincent van Gogh. So please don't mention me in this conversations of art. I hate art. The conversation could take a turn for the worst. And it's just because that's not how we speak.
Yeah.
So it comes down to understanding and also being willing to learn. Because sometimes you would think that you know something until someone would be like, nah, that's not how we do things over there. Even in England, they have a different language of English that you don't know. And it's not even the one that's being taught in textbooks and all that stuff. It's their own version of things. These slang words that people develop over time. But when we have that open-mindedness, is that even a term?
Mindedness.
That's the one. Then we're able to cross those
Barriers.
not barriers, boundaries. And we're able to charter into new territory.
That's very true.
Once we're able to do that, we can now solve one problem. Of the human race is that misunderstanding between cultures, between people. Again, coming back to what I was saying about the experience that Lorenzo had, just that mention of Mandela turned everything on its head. And other places that you would have been to, people may have felt more cold because they were not open. And then also people would have said, no, you cold, you coming into my house.
I was gonna say the same thing.
And you're not even willing to make an effort. And sometimes it's difficult because like my tongue, the way I pronounce certain things, like people ask me why you pronounce your R's like that, it's just how I grew up. I can't change that. Maybe years of practice, but like it's difficult. And then learning another language totally different from the language you grew up speaking, maybe to some extent impossible for some people, just because of how they pronounce certain words in their mother tongue. But we can still make an attempt, an effort. And another thing we shouldn't do is, sometimes people will greet in another language and now you laugh and be like, you said it wrong. Because you greeted like Molweni. I know that's what they like to say in Eastern Cape. The one time it actually happened that I went to Eastern Cape and I was addressing a group of people, and I think there's 3 main languages they speak there. No? It's English, Afrikaans, and Xhosa.
Yeah.
So I tried to greet
Xhosa.
in. Yeah, you see, like.
It's
You see,
Xhosa.
you see,
Xhosa.
you see. He's the one who knows we still struggling here.
He's like, I was like, Kosa.
See,
The car we
and-
drive
you
is
see,
like,
and didn't I just say now, guys? Let's not laugh at each other. My words were not even good. Guys, let's penalize
The
X-Men.
more you get the pronouns wrong, the more I feel eager to punch someone right now.
But the attempt is there to say let's try and overstep into a new positive the direction.
So Brian
And-
said earlier,
Yeah, like I mean, when and take me by the hand and walk with me, and don't like look down at me and think that, hey, this guy is useless. He's good for nothing. He can't even say the X properly. Like guys,
But sometimes I think like some people can be very, very difficult for nothing. Like some people can really
Exactly.
penalize you for your accent,
Exactly.
And like when I look at like, and sometimes I always just ask people and say like, is it just maybe like a South African thing? Because like in America, like people have different accents. They all speaking English, but they have different accents. Someone from Atlanta,
different states, yeah.
and someone from Brooklyn and someone from Atlanta, it's completely different accents, all together,
Yeah.
So, and there, it's okay, it's completely okay. They can coexist, and they will even appreciate you for having a different accent. But I sometimes feel like maybe like here in South Africa, like you hear maybe like a Nigerian speaking English, you understand very well what they're saying, but you're gonna make it so difficult for them. What did you say? But you know exactly what they're saying, and those are the small things that actually make people feel so unwelcome.
Yes.
And some people will try and move away from you because of how you make them feel about who they are. Exactly that.
This is how the culture is, but this is also not exactly how everyone translates the culture the same way that are in the culture. So let's also not invalidate
Yeah,
other people's
true.
experiences within that. So now you have a preconceived notion about a culture that's not yours.
Yeah.
But then somebody else operates differently out of that culture, who's
Yeah.
in the culture. And you're like, oh no, but that's not how that happens in your culture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now you want to tell them about how their culture works
And how
try
they
to-
experience their culture. You know?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just having the appetite. We spoke about food, having the appetite about like of just being able to understand that people experience things differently. They want to see things differently. Let's also try and meet them halfway.
Yeah.
To Maurice's point, speak about it, because that's the only way they're going to get to the point of trying to understand it.
Yes.
And if you really can't reach a truth, then you've tried, and that doesn't go unnoticed, right? No matter how many times someone else says it's not noticed.
I think it just there's just effort, man. Like
Yeah.
putting in the effort, like your willingness to learn, to cross over to the other side, and coming back. You get
Back from the dead. But it also reminds me of like the miners back in the days, coming from different regions in South Africa, and then the languages was completely different. It wasn't just 2 languages; it was like maybe 5, 6, 7 languages.
they created their own language.
Exactly, Fanagalo.
Yeah.
You know.
Also,
And
they
then-
created like a language out of a combination of all these.
Exactly.
Yeah, but it
Wow,
was
that's-
also
that's-
it was also
that's dope.
basically not for someone else to the next person to hear what they're
They
saying.
were saying, yeah, but
Yeah.
it was because just the same way that they learned it could have.
secretive.
Yeah, like in terms of race,
kind of like
in terms of race and stuff like that. Yeah,
Oh.
yeah.
So, but it was a new way for different people coming from all parts of the country to now communicate in one language and not say, no, you should learn, everyone should learn Sutu or everyone should learn Zulu. Everybody just speaks this new language. But just imagine again, like I'm saying, walking past and not being able to speak to anybody, not being able to communicate how you feel, what you think, or anything like that. How crazy would things be? And also thinking about us sitting here now, how do we feel being able to, hey, this guy is something.
But that was, you just asked like how crazy that would be. I'll tell you what happened. Like, Maurice starts working, right? So, how crazy is that? So, we walk past each other like several times, or we meet each other like we at the same spot, but he doesn't greet. How crazy was that?
Oh, it happened with the two of you.
Yeah, like
think
before
the-
we like
I think
became friends.
I think there was a misunderstanding.
Nah, it was,
greeting.
and it didn't happen like once. Now I'm thinking like I'm just going back to that way, saying like, how crazy would that be, with people not speaking to each other? I mean, we saw we saw each other like not on one occasion, but many times, and
But do you know that like sometimes like cultural differences can also conflict, like when put in one area or in one environment, they can literally
Yeah, they
conflict.
can.
Yeah.
Like I'll make an example. Like I think like in my early days of Joburg, when I first came to Joburg, so like I was obviously like staying in the CBD and all of that, right? And like in like in flats, right? You've got like different people obviously, and y'all don't know each other. Maybe like you don't care about each other. It depends. So people cook different food, and food smells differently.
Yep.
And there may be a smell that you don't like. Someone is cooking there, because flats sometimes like
The
like
walls
your-
are as
yeah,
thin
like
as
you're basically separated by walls, basically exactly that. And like, and again, like I'm not ashamed to put myself out there as a person that has actually like that has freed himself from all these things. But I was once in those shoes where I used to judge certain people for their foods in the way that they smelled, and like, I didn't like it, and also like I was also like subjected to, because as Xhosa people we're very loud, like when we talk we're very loud, we're very we're very euphoric people. Yeah, that's the word I'm looking for. So when we play PlayStation or when we talk, we're very loud, and there were people that just couldn't understand us, So that's where now cultural differences actually conflict, and no one was actually willing to come to the table and sit and say, this is who we are. Right? So we kind of like cursed each other from a distance. I pay rent here, so you're not gonna tell me how to speak. The other one is like, I pay rent here, so you're not gonna tell me what to cook. So it's do you get what I'm saying?
yeah.
So like sometimes it like all those things, like they can actually contribute towards like a bigger problem. Now you hear people saying that I don't like Zulus because of, I don't like Xhosas because of. It's because of those things, like those experiences that people actually had.
Yeah.
But if you could actually just come together and just understand each other, why are you guys so loud? Can you tell me? Like, oh yeah, like naturally as Xhosa people, we are so loud and energetic. We're very passionate. And sometimes even in your professional space, sometimes you hear people saying that don't fight. Why are you fighting? Nobody's fighting. That's how people talk.
We express ourselves.
Nobody. Yeah. So sometimes like it's such things that we
Yeah.
need to kind of like break as well. When we
Yeah.
talk about cultural differences, because you'll encounter different people and you won't understand them. The question is, do you want to understand them, or are you going to walk away with your preconceived notions? In which case, you'll never get to the point where I am, where I can now accept people's differences. Oh, we're not the same. This is how they do things.
Yeah.
That's ultimately what brings people together.
And would you be willing to then tone down the volume a bit when it comes to like the PlayStation and the discussions? Because I know we
the
always have
flat should have
debates.
done its job. Soundproof. Soundproof.
But you see, that's the problem, because again now it's like you only want the other party
No,
to
obviously,
accept.
like you see, here's the thing. Like, I do understand that from where that person was coming from, we were making a lot of noise, right? So you have to also check yourself. Where am I? Is this environment conducive enough
Yes.
for me to be able to do certain things? Like I would say I was actually blindsided by ignorance because I was supposed to be aware of
The
like, the
surroundings,
environment,
yeah.
you know? Yeah.
And I think, honestly, Brian, I think just anchoring what you just said, I think what you've done and what you've demonstrated in this conversation of admitting, identifying it within yourself to say that, no, but I've there's been instances where I've had preconceived notions, I've judged people. I think that in itself will also help drive the conversation.
Yeah.
You know, there's one thing to say,
Exactly.
why are you guys so loud? You know, it's another thing to say, oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't know I was loud. Like, you know, are you okay? Whatever the case
Exactly.
is. Yeah, I think you've done a great job in just really demonstrating it, not just with your words, but also what you've done. You know, just to like lay the point out there, if that makes sense.
And I
So,
think
I want to commend you on that.
on ending on that note there, saying that let the conversation continue.
Yeah,
That's basically it. There's a problem, let's talk about it.
let's talk about it.
Let's not fight about it, let's just talk about it.
Yep.
And let's understand where there's the misconceptions, let's bridge it, and let's continue. Thanks, guys.
sir.
Yeah.
Thank you. We out.